How are you? You coming and join me? Yeah, cool. Thanks for getting up with us. It's great. All right. Everyone ready to go? You want a little sound check at all? Mark Bailey, Minister for Transport Main Roads. Hang on.
Yeah, we're good.
You're good in the middle? Yeah, cool. Look, great to join you here Saturday morning. This area, of course, is a really well-used area for not just cyclists and pedestrians, but also e-scooters. And what we did last year was we brought in 2 waves of reforms in terms of e-scooter rules and regulations, because it's a relatively new form of technology that people are using and is quite popular. But what we want to see, and what I want to see as the Transport Minister, is them used safely every time they're ridden. Just like if you're driving a car or a motorbike or on a bicycle, there's rules and regulations about doing it safely to ensure your safety and also the safety of everybody around you. And e-scooters should be no different to that. So that's why we've brought in a range of reforms. And one of the questions has been asked of me plenty of times on social media is, the rules and reforms are fine, but will you actually enforce them? And the answer to that is yes, we absolutely do enforce them. And I think we've all seen the occasional rogue e-scooter doing 50 or 60k down the road with no regard for other people, doubling people, not wearing helmets. There's still quite a lot of people out there using e-scooters in a dangerous way, and I think that's been accentuated by a number of recent deaths, and also there's 2 children in hospital at the moment who were in an e-scooter crash. I understand that their condition is stabilised, which is really heartening, but it just goes to show the danger involved if you're not using e-scooters in a safe way. So I'm here with Duncan Hall from the Queensland Police Service, who'll give you some comments in a moment, but they do go out and they enforce the provisions around e-scooters on our bikeways, on our shared pathways, on our roads. And since we brought in the second wave of reforms in November 1 last year, we've seen 780 offences. So we've still got work to do, and people have still got to understand that if you use an e-scooter, you've got to have a helmet. You've got to do those things that make it safe. And look, I'll be really frank. One of the ones that really concerns me as I get around on my bicycle or go for a run is seeing a parent doubling their child on an e-scooter, basically teaching them how to, use them in an unsafe way. So, this is a really important issue. They can accelerate quickly. They are dangerous if they're used poorly. And what I say to e-scooter riders is, we want you to be legal, but we want you to be safe. And that's what the enforcement is about. If you're doing the wrong thing on e-scooters, you will get caught. There's absolutely no doubt about it, whether it's a police car on the road or whether it's a team out on one of the shared pathways or bikeways. Police are enforcing these provisions, and we just want e-scooters to get the safety message, because lives are at stake. If you talk to the emergency departments, they've seen a lot of injuries from e-scooters, from people doing the wrong thing. We want people to be safe. We want them to go home in one piece, and that's an important thing to achieve. Duncan.
How are you going? City Constable Duncan Hill. I'm from Brisbane City Highway Patrol. I can confirm what the Minister has said. We are out and about since the 1st of November conducting enforcement on roads, on footpaths, on shared paths, on the Bicentennial Bikeway and the Goodwill Bridge behind us. While in November and December we were targeting education and engagement with bike riders and scooter riders and all the other personal mobility devices, we did, however, see, unfortunately, over 700 people still doing the wrong thing and receiving infringements for it. The most common offence is still helmets, failing to wear one. It's over 400 tickets were issued. We had 5 people issued tickets for using their mobile phone while riding, including one person who thought it'd be funny to do an Instagram live feed as they came to the river stage here for a concert while they were crossing the Goodwill Bridge. With the new rules that came out on the 1st of November, the fines relating to the incorrect use of a personal mobility device and or mobile phone is pegged at the same as a motor vehicle. It's still $1,078. So these are serious offences, and we are taking them seriously out there and enforcing them. I want to remind everyone that while these devices may have appeared under the Christmas tree, they're not toys. We ask that everyone obey the road rules, look after themselves and the other path users. That's the important thing here. it's not just about the personal mobility device rider themselves, but the other people using the infrastructure. It's the pedestrians, the people walking their dogs, and the children on push bikes. We ask that everyone remember that they are part of the road use network, and that we want everyone to be safe while using it. The other major change I just want to briefly touch on is that the personal mobility devices were made vehicles under the road rules. This means that they are subject to all relevant road rules when they're able to ride on a road. Since the 1st of November, police have stopped over 20 people for going through a red traffic light while riding a personal mobility device. That's a basic, fundamental road rule that's ingrained in every person in Queensland, most likely Australia. And we just ask that people remember that while they're riding a personal mobility device, they are subject to the same road rules. It's about being safe for you and everyone else.
Can we just talk about what could happen next? I understand drink driving or riding is going to be a focus.
Well, we continue to provide a big focus on drink riding, or riding under the influence. I work in Brisbane City, so working around Fortitude Valley in the Brisbane City Safe Night Precinct, I get to see a lot of people who are riding it when they probably shouldn't be. There's a misconception that they're doing the right thing by not driving home. We want to remind people that as a vehicle, riding these while under the influence is still an offence, and one that you can and will be prosecuted for.
You mentioned that the current approach has been around education. Are there plans to ramp up that enforcement of these new rules?
Like most rules, new road rules that come in, the police tend to take a very engagement and educative approach to start with. So that's how we've started this in the 1st of November. We are now moving into more of an enforcement phase of our campaign. So in February and March, when people start going back to work and back to school, you will see us more prominently out on the roads and on the bike network enforcing these rules, including the speed limits. So remembering it is 12 kilometres an hour on footpaths and shared paths, and 25 kilometres an hour on roads. We're aware that these devices are capable of speeds well and above of that, but that's the speed that is safe for all road use for all road users on the network, and that's what we want to remind people about. It's not just you, the rider; it's safety of the other people on the footpaths.
Do you think that companies should lock the speeds lower so they are capable of going faster?
We've worked really hard with Neuron and with Beam as the two providers here in Brisbane. They do, on all their devices, have two settings already for 25 and for 12 or 15. Just due to limitations in their technology with GPS, they can't make it any less than that. So it's on the user. The responsibility falls on the user to do the right thing. The same goes for wearing a helmet. Beam and Neuron provide helmets with all their devices. Yet, as I said, 400 infringements were issued for people not wearing a helmet. I mean, it's a simple road rule.
What about the private e-scooter market? Those ones purchased privately, not through Beam or Neuron, they pose different kind of challenges in terms of enforcement?
They do. The rules that we're seeing, or the activities that they're taking, they tend to be the more risk takers. They're the ones who are more confident, more comfortable on their device, which unfortunately seems to lead to complacency with the road rules. So they're the ones you'll see riding on the middle of the road doing 60, 70 kilometres. I don't want to tarnish the whole group. A lot of them are doing the right thing, and we appreciate that. However, there is still that group of people who seem to ruin it for everyone.
Are you concerned that we might see fatal accidents or serious injuries to people start paying attention?
Look, unfortunately, there's already been several fatals since 2018 involving the use of e-scooters or e-devices on our roads or on our network. We're here to try and minimise that and to make sure it doesn't happen. However, there's always those individuals who don't seem to have the same level of care and consideration that we require. So 700 infringements in 2 months, you'll start to see that increase over the next 12.
There's a lot of figures out today about the number of injuries. Do those figures surprise you, or given what you've seen out there with some of the riskier behaviours, unsurprising?
No, unfortunately my job working on a motorbike in Brisbane City, looking after the road rules and scooter riders, I go to enough of these crashes to see that the injuries that are caused by them when people don't take enough care and consideration. I do have to point out that while I've just said that we've issued 700 tickets and there's several hundred injuries going to hospital, that only equates to a very small proportion of the rides undertaken every single day on these devices. We are only talking about a very small minority of people who aren't taking the necessary care, and I think that needs to be remembered.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much, Duncan, and thanks to all the police service who do a lot of enforcement on this, and Duncan is a real specialist in this area, so thanks for all your work, Duncan. Yeah. Any more questions on e-scooters?
Yeah, so what are the new changes that come into effect around drink driving scooters this year?
Yeah, look, this is probably the last remaining area that we're still working on, and really it's just a technical piece about definitions around what's a vehicle, what's not a vehicle. Clearly alcohol, especially if you're over the limit, and e-scooters is a really dangerous combination. So we want to make sure that our enforcement there is technically correct as well as effective on the ground. So that's just an area we're continuing to work with QPS, and while they have been able to do some enforcement, they'd like a broader remit to be able to do that. So that's an area that we'll come back to you on that. But we've rolled out the reforms as we've completed them to make sure they're in place so that we can see safety improved as early as we can.
So it'll be about just fine-tuning the laws around drink driving so that they really encapsulate all that e-scooter riders as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a whole range of provisions now around speed, for instance, that if you're on a footpath, it's 12.5k. If you're on one of those bigger bikeways where it's more a commuter thing, it's 25. There's a range of provisions that we've brought in. And we are enforcing, and we've been educating people too. There's been a lot of social media. We've been telling people what the new rules are, what's a fine and what's not fine, and we'll continue to do that. And the drink driving piece is the last piece, and we'll have some news for you as we complete that.
So what are the current limitations that police face in trying to enforce those drink riding?
Well, I might ask Duncan to comment on that directly, but it's a definitional thing about what's a vehicle and what's not a vehicle. So we've had a provision in there for some enforcement, but there's also some limitations about how we do that. So Duncan, would you like to comment on that?
So I'll just get the question again, if you don't mind.
What are those limitations that police face around enforcing those drink riding?
So the rules as they currently apply require us to arrest people outright for being under the influence of liquor or drugs. So we have to find the person, we have to, by their way they're behaving, their mannerisms, balance, speech, we have to determine that they're actually under the influence of a drug or liquor before we can take any further action in relation to that. As you could imagine, that's quite difficult to do when they're riding past you at 20-25 kilometres an hour on a footpath in Fortitude Valley. So I guess that's part of the reason why we've engaged in having these conversations with Transport and Main Roads to see what solutions we can come up with that allows us a greater scope in our enforcement in this area. So whereas in a motor vehicle you've got a general alcohol limit of 0.05, 0.1 for a middle and 0.15 blood alcohol content for under the influence, at the moment it's 0.15 or under the influence for personal mobility device users. So that's part of the challenges that we face.
So would police like to see the alcohol limits for scooter riders lowered?
I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on determining what the appropriate level is. However, pegging it at 0.15 when people are at the high range, you can understand that just being at high range, you've already got significant issues with balance, reaction times. So what the appropriate level is for a personal mobility device, I'm not sure about, but 0.15 is very high.
So what about breathalyzers? Would that be another approach you'd like to see introduced for police? Being able to breathalyze?
Look, at the moment we have the power to take them back to a police station to put them on the instrument back at our stations. That's a very confronting experience for most people. And being stopped for a breathalyzer at the side of the road is a commonplace for people who drive on a road network. Whether that's appropriate for people on footpaths and on our roads riding personal mobility devices, that's a big lot of policy work that needs to occur. We're talking about a lot more road users. So again, that's something we'll continue to discuss with Queensland, with Transport and Main Roads.
Would it be useful for at least deterring people if they know that there's a chance of them getting breathalyzed and potentially then popping a fine, to deter people?
At the moment, we've been doing a lot of work to remind people that they shouldn't be doing it anyway. Drink riding is still dangerous, and you'll find that a lot of them, if they're not picked up by us, unfortunately, are probably ending up at the hospital, so they're getting that reminder directly. I have personally sent 5 people to court in relation to being under the influence. I know of several others from my office who have done the same thing, and it does result in a loss of licence at times, so it does have a wide-ranging effect.
Is that it for e-scooters? Anything else there? Okay.
Just on housing, Minister.
Yep.
The Housing Summit report was released a couple of months ago, I think probably nearly 2 months ago now. What is the progress on that? Has any work started?
Well, look, we've built 5,600 homes under the Palaszczuk government. We're very committed to housing options, and there'll be more to come. We're about to, not far off building, for instance, the mixed-use precinct at Yeronga, where there will be some housing as part of that. So we're very committed to that. We've got a huge housing package that we added $1 billion to. So we are very active in this space. I know there's been some really good ideas put forward as part of our housing roundtable, and we will be looking further at that. I know the Deputy Premier has opened up to make granny flat conversions a lot easier under planning regulations. So we're doing everything we can to increase the affordability and the availability of housing here in Queensland.
Minister, just on health, there are reports today that midwives have left and have to stick their necks out with their own jobs on the line to save the lives of women and their babies. Why have they been put in this position? What's the government going to do about it?
Yeah, look, obviously it was a concerning report to read. I understand Queensland Health are investigating that matter, so I look forward to them completing that investigation and seeing what needs to be done.
That's just a place of 60,000 people, Minister. Why can't women have babies where they live in Queensland?
Well, as I said, this particular incident is there's been some serious allegations there. I know Queensland Health are looking at that at them and investigating those as is appropriate. And look, I'm sure the Health Minister is looking forward to the information that comes from that investigation to see if there's measures that need to be taken, and they certainly will be.
This is far from the first time we've heard concerns about maternity services in Queensland under this government. Are they just not a priority for this Health Minister?
Look, there's no doubt that health is number one priority of the Palaszczuk Labor government. We saw savage cuts to our health sector under the Newman Crisafulli government, where 4,400 health staff were cut, including 1,800 nurses. Under the Palaszczuk government, we've seen more than 50% increase in doctors, more than 37% increase in nurses, as well as allied health professionals. And thank God that we did. With the pandemic, we needed every single one of those health staff who did a magnificent job protecting Queenslanders from the COVID virus, particularly when we weren't vaccinated. So our record on health, including expanding the health sector in terms of satellite hospitals, is very strong. That contrasts very strongly with the ideological position of the LNP, where they only believe in cutting. That's what they did last time when they were in government. That's what they do again.
And your satellite hospitals, though, over budget and over deadline, so they can't be
Well, what we see is record inflation in this government left by the incompetent LNP federal government, and everyone in the construction sector, private and public, are dealing with increased costs that are consequent to the economic incompetence of the LNP. So yeah, costs are up on some projects, but it's one thing to whinge and whine about it from the LNP. What are they suggesting? That we should stop these projects? That seems to be what they're implying. We will not stop the projects that we've committed to just because there might be an increase in costs caused by the inflation left by the LNP themselves.
There are obstetricians calling for the federal government to step in and sort out this maternity mess that's going on in Queensland. Is that what they're saying?
Look, I know Queensland Health are looking at staff availability in regional areas. There are challenges there. We've got basically a full employment situation, so finding staff, not just in health, but just about every sector, is a real challenge at the moment for everyone across the economy. Queensland Health are doing all they can in terms of attracting staff to the regional areas throughout Queensland, and I'm sure they will succeed in doing that. But people in the current economy are changing jobs a lot. There's a lot of opportunities there for increased salaries, wages, opportunities because there's a shortage of staff across the economy, and Queensland Health is acting on that.
Is there time for a new health minister, and would you take up the role if you were chaplain?
No, certainly not. And Yvette Darth's doing a fantastic job. Compare that to the health record under the LNP, where they cut, they sacked, and they sold. It's all we've got from the LNP are the Newman government leftovers, and they're still there. It's still running the show, and all they're doing is they whinge and they whine but they don't want to talk about what they do, which would be to cut. That's what they did last time. That's what they do again.
The opposition's also saying wait times for cochlear implants are now going out. Is that adding to the concerns about Queensland's health?
Yeah, look, I'd want to get some more advice from the Health Minister on that in particular, but look, there have been a few challenges across different sectors of health. I'd hope to get more information back for you on that one in particular. I know there have been continuing there, but the demand has increased in recent times, so I have confidence that Queensland Health will be responding to that.
Just on the chopper crash at SeaWorld on Monday, how's the investigation progressing?
Look, this is a matter not for this government, but actually for the ATSB, the Australian Transport Safety Bureau. They were on site very quickly, and I've got great confidence in their ability to do a thorough investigation. We've been supporting them from a Transport Main Roads point of view. They've been using some of our officers down there on a temporary basis at Gold Coast Waterways Authority. So look, I look forward, I know everyone will look forward to the outcome of that investigation, because we certainly want that never to happen again. And it's been a terrible tragedy that's that everybody's felt very, very bad about.
Have you been in touch with the...
Sorry, guys,
Fire alarm for sure. You're right, do you want me to take them off? Thank you, that's just dragging.
just pick that mic up there.
Yeah.
You're going to come back through this way?
All right.
Yeah. So should we stay on the road or should we move somewhere?
I think we're pretty close to the end, I think, aren't we? They'll be a few minutes. They'll be there for 5 minutes, I'm sure, right? So, get going here.
I'll make this last question, guys.
All right, we're all multitasking. Fantastic.
Quick second.
Yeah,
Everyone good?
you're good for sound?
Yep.
All right, terrific.
Is it appropriate that nearby businesses near the crash site were operating just the following day?
Look, I'm not aware of those particular matters, but I'm sure that the ATSB are specialists in investigating these kinds of things. I'm sure anything that they would want, they would have got, so I'm not aware of that particular matter, but I haven't heard anything from the ATSB about an issue being there.
There's a vigil for Nicholas Tadros in Sydney today. Do you have
Sorry, vigil for who?
Nicholas Tadros, one of the victims of
Yeah.
the crash, who's in hospital at the moment today? Do you have any words you'd like to say?
Oh look, our hearts are out there for Nicholas and hoping that he makes a recovery. He has had some severe injuries from all reports. I think we're all just willing him to get better and to be able to recover fully. And it's a terrible thing for a young kid to go through.
The opposition have been very vocal about the cost of learner licence fees for young Queenslanders. Will you commit to bringing those fees down in this term of government?
Yeah, look, the LNP really kind of haven't got much to say about much at all, really, have they? This hasn't changed since they were in power. So David Crisafulli was around the cabinet table when nothing's actually changed since then. So look, we've said previously we're happy to look at it. We'll look at it methodically. We're not going to make some knee-jerk decision on it. The department's looking at it when that work is complete, and if we make a decision to change it, I'll be happy to announce it. But David Crisafulli did nothing about this issue when he was a cabinet minister under Campbell Newman. Zero. Never mentions that in his press conference, funnily enough. He's really struggling out there. This is the big issue for him. When he himself did nothing and when he was in power about it, they really lost the plot.
Thanks, everyone.
All good? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good to see fire and rescue on the job.